Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Zach's Credit Card Guide. This week we're talking about the coronavirus and how it might affect your finances and what your options are for your credit cards. So first, as you can see, we are back from the cruise, back at home. We had no drama on our boat, nobody was sick, we had no issues getting into our ports. Well, we had one issue, but it was weather related, so we had no problem on the boat, no issues getting back, we didn't have to get quarantined or anything like that, so thumbs up to that. On a slightly related note, it sounds like all of the major cruise lines have completely halted operations for the time being, so we timed that perfectly. So I've got pictures and stuff. I want to tell you guys about the trip, but I want to do it on a lighter note because I want to talk about this coronavirus and what's going on. So we're not going to talk about the illness and whether or not you need to be concerned and all that stuff. What we're going to talk about is the reaction to it, which is very real and impacting a lot of people. So a lot of businesses all around the world and here in the US are starting to react, and people are being told to either work remotely. My full-time job just put us all on notice that we're to work from home for the time being, and a lot of other jobs are just either shutting their doors, sending people home. A lot of retail places are all shutting down, which could trigger another recession, so it's good to have an emergency fund if at all possible. You should have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up and ready to go. And why that's important is because if you're in a job like retail, where you kind of depend on showing up to work, for instance, like T-Mobile just announced that they're shutting a lot of their retail stores. So what do you do if you're in that spot and you're relying on that paycheck coming up and maybe you don't have an emergency fund? Are you going to rely on credit cards? And that's what we're talking about this week, is what are your options? So of course, if you can at all help it, you don't want to rely on a credit card as an emergency fund, because it's going to accrue interest. It's very easy to get into trouble doing that. I understand everybody's situations are different. Not everybody can save up a bunch of money every month to have an emergency fund. I get it, guys. But what I'm saying is still relying on a credit card is really not a good idea. So what are your options if you miss a paycheck and now you have a credit card and maybe you run up a balance, and what if this triggers a recession? What we're going to talk about here is kind of what are your options if you're really between a rock and a hard place. So all of the major banks have put out statements recently. Your email, like mine, has probably got blown up over the past few days by every company that's ever had your email with some generic PR statement about how they're handling this thing. And as far as we're concerned here in this space, it's what are the banks doing? So they've all pretty much put out something along the lines of, if you're in trouble, call us, which is good because they do have options. They can either reduce your monthly payments, they can waive late fees. They're prepared to do stuff like that, especially after the crisis in 2008. So they're ready for that kind of stuff, and it's all over the news that people are having financial difficulty, that people might not be showing up to their jobs, so they're ready for that kind of stuff. So what I'm telling you is, if you're unfortunately in one of these situations, and maybe you're going to miss a paycheck, or maybe your paycheck's going to be a little bit lower than it usually is, and you don't have an emergency fund, like if you find yourself where you have to use a credit card to keep the lights on, and if this thing gets worse or you find that you can't make the monthly payment, try to avoid like ignoring it or doing something bad that can really trash your credit for years to come. Just call the banks. They're used to this, they're ready for this. So if you guys need some sort of assistance with your credit card bill, just call the bank. They've all put out statements that they're ready for it and that they have options. Now, one of those options is something called forbearance, which basically means you just kind of put the account on hold. Sometimes they require you to pay like the interest or something, but they may not require like a minimum payment. They kind of just put your account into a dormant status. But it will typically still accrue interest, even if they don't require you to pay it. It's going to accrue interest, and then each month is interest on interest. It can get really bad if you do that. Now again, if you're in that situation, you may not have an option, but try to avoid it at all costs. What I would recommend is if you're staring down the barrel of this particular gun, then you may want to look at opening a new card that has like a long, no interest intro APR. A lot of the cards that we talk about on this channel have no interest APRs, starting from like 12 months all the way out to like some are even like 21 months. A couple city cards I think are all the way out to nearly 2 years of no interest. So if you're in a situation right now where you're worried about getting paid in 2 weeks, I would seriously consider from this video going onto Google and just finding the card with the longest no interest introductory period and apply for it if you really think that you might be in that situation. Now, if you have a mortgage, it's the same kind of deal. A lot of the banks are ready for this kind of thing this time. Usually if you've been good at making your on-time payments and you don't really have any negative marks on your file, usually 1 month, if you call them up and just explain the situation, they might let you not skip a payment, like you still have to make it, but they'll put you on hold for a month. A lot of them will let you do that, but it's typically only like 1 month. But if your mortgage payment is 4 figures, that might give you a little bit of breathing room. So there are options. The moral of the story this week is if you're in one of these tight spots, just call the bank and just level with them. Don't try to make it a whole thing and tell them a whole story, and you don't need to tell them more than they need to know. Just say, look, I'm having some issues. You've seen the news. I need some options. And a lot of the banks have trained people ready to go. Now you might have a long hold time because everybody's calling in, but the point is just call the banks and a lot of them will help you out or at least try to soften the blow, as it were. So that's the video this week, guys. Just wanted to talk about this topic because some people might unfortunately find themselves in this situation. So like I said, if you have an emergency fund, now might be the time to use it depending on your situation. After that, maybe look at a no interest credit card, but again, you want to avoid piling on a ton of debt if you can help it. Maybe turn to friends and family if there are assistance programs in your area. A lot of states and the federal government are trying to figure that out, but I have a fear that the problem might be too big. If you look at, every industry is tied to each other. And once these people stop going to work, they don't get a paycheck, they can't spend their money, so now those businesses close down. This could trigger a recession of some sort. So just be prepared, just think through your options. But like I said, if you start using a credit card and you find that you can't make the payment at the end of the cycle, don't just ignore it. That could put a bad mark on your credit report. Just call the banks and explain the situation. My question for you guys is, if you know of any other resources, if you have anything to add to this, please leave those comments down below. You might be able to help out somebody if there's something I didn't cover and you know of any particular assistance programs or something else that people can do. If you're thinking of something, feel free to share it down below. And while this isn't the best topic to talk about, please leave the video a thumbs up if for no other reason than to spur that YouTube algorithm to try to get this information out to more people. Well, that's all I've got for you this week, guys. Make sure to subscribe. And if you have any other questions, feel free to get a hold of me through my social media links down in the description. Well, that's it this week. I hope you guys are all safe. Take precautions, be safe, wash your hands, and if you're sick, stay home. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure to drop a comment down below and give the video a thumbs up. Here's some other videos that I think you'll really like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well. See you at the next one.